In this video I have a nice lick for you, and it's been quite some time since I've done one of these, but I've come up with a new lick which I think is sufficiently nice to merit inclusion in this series. And as is usual with this series, we are of course going to be learning the lick, and I've got a couple of variations on the lick as well, but perhaps more important than that, I want to talk about what's going on behind the lick. So I want to give you some broader concepts that you can actually use and make your own. So let me begin by playing through the lick for you. So there we are, that's the lick. We're in the key of C, and it's a kind of bluesy, country-ish thing. It flits between major and minor, and there are lots of musical situations where you could use an idea like this, I think. So let's begin by looking at the lick, the master lick, if you like, then I'll talk about the variations as well. And just to remind you, the basic lick went like this. So really this whole lick is just based on one pattern, which I'm then moving up and down the fretboard. But regular viewers of this channel will know that I'm not a fan of just mindless finger patterns, and just a finger pattern on its own doesn't really mean very much. You need to understand it in terms of intervals and the function of the notes. So you need to know what the notes are doing in relation to the key or to the chord that you're playing over at any given moment. So this lick is designed to work over a C chord or a C7 chord, and the actual starting pattern is this. We've got 3 notes on the B string and 2 notes on the high E string. So frets 8, 9, 10 on the B and 8 and 10 on the high E. So what does that finger pattern actually mean in context, and in the context of the key of C and the C or the C7 chord? So I like to relate these patterns to underlying chord shapes. So I might be thinking about a C major bar chord or a C7 bar chord, and then seeing that little pattern around that chord shape. So in terms of that chord shape, we've got this note here is a chord tone, this is the 5th, and we're chromatically going up to this note here, this is the 6th or the 13th, and then over onto the high E string we've got a C, so this is our root note, and then the 10th fret is giving you the 2nd or the 9th. So that's the intervals involved here, or the function of these notes. So that's our initial pattern. Now in terms of the picking here, I think this is important. I kind of shredded my way through it as best I could at the start of this video, and if you do want to play this lick at a reasonable kind of speed, then you need to think about your picking hand, and the way I've chosen to do it is this. I'm playing down, up, and I've got a hammer on there, and then I've got an up down on the high E string. So down, up, hammer, up, down. And just the inclusion of that hammer on just seems to enable you to play it a little bit faster, and you could pick all of those notes. I can play that reasonably quickly, but I'm certainly no shredder, and for me when I'm playing fast it makes it far easier if I'm just including some fretting hand stuff, so hammer-ons and pull-offs. So that's the opening part of the lick, and then all we're doing is we're playing the same idea 2 frets lower. So exactly the same idea, the same picking, but now of course the function of the notes has changed in relation to the chord. So I'm still thinking C or C7 here, and the notes that we've got here, we're starting on the 4th, and then we've got this same chromatic run up of notes, so it's 4th, flat 5th and 5th, and then on the high E string we've got this note here, this is a B flat, that's a flat 7, and then here we've got a root note. So it's got a bluesier sound, this. I mean, you could think of these notes as coming from your C blues scale if you want to think in terms of scales. So that's the C blues scale, just as you could think of that initial run of notes as belonging perhaps to the C major pentatonic scale, just with the inclusion of that extra chromatic note. And the third part of the lick goes like this. It's exactly the same shape moved further down the fretboard, so we've now got 3, 4, 5 on the B string, 3 and 5 on the high E string, Once again, the function of the notes has changed, the intervals have changed. Now you might think in terms of this C bar chord or this C7 bar chord here. So now we've got this note here, which is the ninth or the second, and then we're going up to the third. So the second, flat third, third, and then over onto the top string, this is the fifth, and then this is the sixth. Exactly the same articulation with the picking hand. Then we're breaking away from our pattern, and the lick ends with this descending series of notes. So after we've played that shape the third time, we hit this high A note, and then we're coming down chromatically from there. Then we're over onto the B string, and here we're targeting this note here, the E, which is the third, and this is a technique known as enclosure. It's used a lot by jazz players as well as country players. So if we're aiming for this note here, we're just enclosing it with a note that's chromatically above and below the target note, and then we're hitting that target note. And then I'm continuing like this. I'm playing this C note, then I've got an open third string, and this is similar to what I was talking about last week, just the inclusion of almost random open strings. I mean, that open string does fit the key of the lick, but it's really there just to help the flow of the lick. It's almost a ghost note in the context of this particular lick. And then we're coming over onto the D string, and the lick finishes like that. We've got, so once again we've got the inclusion of an open string in there. We've got F, open D string, and then a hammer on from E flat to E. It's more of this flat third to third stuff, minor to major third, and then we're ending on the root note. So all of that put together, so that's the lick, and you might just want to learn that one note for note, but I think once you understand what's going on behind the lick, it's actually quite easy to come up with some variations and just take these general concepts and run with them, and you can get a lot of mileage out of a very simple idea. So that's what I've tried to do with my variations. The first variation, I was just taking this basic pattern, but I was starting down here at the third fret and I was ascending instead of descending. So I started off here, and then going up, and then ending up here at the 8th fret, and finishing with a kind of bluesy idea. So 10th fret here, 11th fret, and then a double pull off, and coming down the scale, ending with kind of a bluesy thing here. So this A note, and then the minor third, just giving that a bit of a pull, and ending up on the root. So that's variation number 1. And then for the second variation, I just thought I would reverse the order of notes within this shape. So instead of going, I actually started on the highest note and then came down. So we've got D, C, A, and then pulling off from G sharp to G, and then taking that shape down the fretboard. And then ending up with another kind of bluesy idea, this time down at the 3rd fret. So after I've played the third shape, really just taking the same idea over onto the G and D strings. So once again, it's the same shape, but here we've got the root, the flat 7, and then the 5th, the flat 5th, and the 4th. So this is the C blues scale. So ending up with that kind of C blues scale lick. So if I put all of that together, we've got So there we have it. You've got 3 licks for the price of 1 really there. And if you do like the sound of this lick, then I definitely urge you to try and come up with some variations of your own. It's actually quite easy once you've got this little pattern to move it around, change the rhythm, change the order of the notes, and you've got something original. Let me give you a little bit of a rig rundown of the gear that I'm using in this video. And the guitar today is my Strat. It's a 60 something reissue Strat. I suppose the Telecaster would have been the obvious guitar for this kind of country-ish flavoured lick, but I like the Strat. That works just as well for country in most situations, I think. And I was using the middle pickup today, which is a nice sound. I don't often use the middle pickup, but I should probably use it a bit more because I think it sounds great. And the amp I'm using today is my little Fender Super Champ, which I haven't used for a while, but for those of you who were there right at the start of this channel, then this was the little amp that I used for all of the early videos, and it's been very good to me over the years. It's a really versatile amp. It works for just about any style of music, and it's really easy to get great sounds at quite a reasonable volume. So that's what I'm using today. I've got a couple of pedals as well. So because it's country, I quite like to use some compression. So I've got my MXR Dynacomp, and this is a Script Logo reissue Dynacomp. It's a reissue of one of the 70s Dynacomps, and then a little bit of overdrive from the J Rocket Archer. And in this kind of country context, I'm not really using it for overdrive. It's just really a subtle kind of boost. It just seems to add a little bit of warmth and fatness to the sound. So the guitar straight into the amp sounds like this. If I turn on the compressor, makes quite a big difference, I think, the compressor. So it just adds a bit more sustain, a little bit more definition to the pick attack. And then the Archer, so you can hear it's just adding a little bit more volume, maybe a little bit more mid-range as well. That's it for this video. I wanted to keep this one reasonably concise, but if you are in the mood for more nice licks, then there are plenty more where this one came from. And I can't remember exactly how many of these I've done now, but it's 14 or 15. I'll double check the exact number, and you can find those on my website, or if you do a search on this YouTube channel. And if you want tab for this, then that's going to be up on my Patreon page. You can pay what you like and get access to what is now quite a sizable archive of all of my tabs and backing tracks. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.